Hey, I'm Alex Rackle from Board Game Co. and today I'm reviewing Switchbacks from All Play. Switchbacks is a 2 to 4 player game of trying to create sets of 4. It's not entirely, I don't know how to describe this game in like 2 seconds in that sense, but Switchbacks is a game where you're trying to place hikers down onto trails while trying to make sure your trails are in a sequence so that your hikers can score, because if your hikers go on trails that don't end up in a sequence, your hikers won't score. I guess that kind of works. The general idea of the game is you're trying to make sure your hikers are in sequences of 4 or more. So for example, let's just go ahead and place a few tiles down on the map so we can give you a sense of things. You start with one tile on the map. We're just going to place a few up because it'll be faster to try to explain things. So we have this over here. We're going to place this guy over here like so. And you can place these down anywhere as you're placing. Right now I'm focusing more on trying to give you an idea of how things can score. We'll have the 3 over here. We'll put down the 10 over there. And then we'll put down like, a nice 4 over here like so. So you can see there's multiple options on the table starting to develop. And we'll also even throw down some hikers as if players have already put some hikers down onto those trails. And we'll explain a bit more how this plays out as we go. So right now, the way your hikers score is each hiker is worth a point if it's on a trail that has a sequence of at least 4. So for example, 7, 8 is only a sequence of 2. If you had 7, 8, 9, 10, so if someone puts a 9 here, then all of these hikers would score. But if somebody else puts a different number here, then you have to find different ways to make a sequence of 4, which is still possible. Because if someone puts like a 12 here, you can still do a 7, 8, I guess a 5, 6, 7, 8. So you still can get a sequence here. But you're trying to get your hikers down onto trails that have a sequence of at least 4, could be more than 4, in order for them to score. Otherwise, they won't score. If at the end of the game, this 3 and 4 never become greater than, it could become a 3, but if it's 3, 4, 5, and it never actually becomes at least 4, this hiker will be removed and will not score any points. That's basically how you're scoring in the game. As far as the gameplay, you're going to have 3 tiles in your hand. Depending on the player count, you'll have some degree of hidden information where you know a tile that's not in play, which is important because most of the tiles will be played out, but there's some tiles that won't be in play. That's 7, 8, 9, 10. For all you know, 9 is one of the tiles that's not in play, and you don't realize that, and you're just hoping it'll come out. Although, honestly, given the board state, other players can get in the way. Although, technically, in this 3-player game, all players would benefit, but blue's benefiting more, so maybe the other players should still tank them. I don't really know. Anyways, on your turn, you go ahead and choose a tile from your hand. You play that tile on the board, and you decide whether you want to place a hiker out or buddy up. So, for example, I'll go ahead and place this hiker down. I'll place a single hiker down onto that tile over there. That's a valid turn. I draw a new tile, and then it's somebody else's turn. They'll go ahead and take a look at their hand. They'll take a look at their 3 tiles. They have a 36, 37, and a 27. Maybe they'll place their 27 out, and they'll drop a red hiker down there. That's their turn. We'll take the next player. They'll go ahead and take a look at these, and look at that. They have a 26. They're going to go ahead and hold on to that 26 for right now, and they're going to buddy up, which I'll explain in a second, but maybe they drop that 32 down over here to like tempt some people with some candy. Maybe somebody drops a 33 there. Things could be interesting. We'll see. But they're going to go ahead and buddy up. So the green player over here, I was the green player. The blue player is going to buddy up. What that means is instead of placing a hiker down on the board on the tile that they just placed, they're instead going to grab another type hiker and create a grouping of 2 hikers. You see, on any given turn, you will place a tile and then you will either place a hiker or buddy up. And when you place a hiker, you could place a grouping of hikers. So one of the groups that you've buddied up, you could place them down the board. The basic idea of this is you're kind of giving up a turn, saying I don't want to place something, but you're doing so in exchange for a stronger turn or potentially stronger turn where you place 2 down at once, which isn't necessarily important. Isn't necessarily going to score you points. You still need a trail of 3. But my thought process as this player was this 26 over here. If I can wait and see what happens over here, this is almost a guaranteed 2 points depending what happens to the field. So I'm going to hold on to this and place my buddy up hikers at a different point in time when I think that's ripe for scoring. When I think there's a guarantee that the 25 or the 29 is in play, I'll go ahead and do that. So that was my thought process around this, and that's generally what you're trying to do. You're trying to think through how likely you to score at any given point, because by the time the game's over, you will have always either buddied up or placed a hiker. All your hikers should be on the board. The only question is how good were the spots that they placed them. At the end of the game, you're going to go ahead and look at all the trails. You'll see whatever grouping is of at least 4 or more. Those that do, you'll leave the hikers on the board. Those that don't, you'll remove them. You'll see who has the most scoring hikers, and that is how you play Switchbacks. Which brings us to a review, starting off with these of play. This is an all-play game. It's got 2 pages of rules. Takes 2 seconds. I think this is part of their 1 minute to teach, it even says. Here we go, the 1 minute to teach line. I think it's slightly more than a minute, but honestly it's close enough. I'm not going to give them much flack for that. This is a quick playing, quick teaching game. Plays in like 10-15 minutes. You can knock out a game very quickly. Just place a tile, see how you score. Boom, rinse and repeat. Or maybe not. Maybe that was your filler for the night. It is an easy game to teach, an easy game to play, and a very quick playing game to play. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is that speed, that accessibility. This is a classic filler, giving you a rewarding amount of game for the game length, meaning this is not going going to be a medium or heavy late game. There's not a ton of satisfaction going on here, but for the 10-15 minutes a game takes, there's enough strategy to be rewarding for this 10 to 15 minute filler game. The hidden knowledge gives you just enough information as well as far as what goes on, both as far as what's out of the game, but also planning around your turn. The fact that you have a player over here who knows the 26 is coming, and the fact that you can always have some degree of information, and you plan around butting up based on that information, gives you more tools for how you're going to try to get one over your opponents or ensure that you're scoring. And to a certain extent, you're working together in the game to build a shared landscape, but always being mindful of who's going to score the most points off that shared landscape. Are we trying to tank that sequence because other players have more hikers there, or are we trying to grow it because we think we can take advantage of it? That little trade-off is constantly present as you go there. And there's also the aspect of the risking now versus later aspect of placing hikers down. Do you place hikers down as you get them right away to be able to lock in those points, or do you buddy up hoping something better comes along, but if nothing does, then you end up placing those two hikers on a badly placed tile? The idea that you sat there and said, hey, because right now this player red, or blue it was, blue could have placed a hiker over here and hoped for a 33, hope to see how that plays out. Alternatively, the fact that they buddied up might mean that those two hikers later may be placed somewhere that doesn't actually reward them, kind of giving you that whole now versus later risk and reward. As far as things I don't like in the game, the biggest complaint I have, past the fact that this is a lighter game, you have to know what it is, I'd say the biggest complaint is I think the two-player mode felt a bit more direct back and forth. The fact that you are building out that landscape together means that in a 3 or 4 player game, it kind of feels like you're playing with the other players, but not necessarily with everyone. You're being mindful how things are created. In a 2 player game, it's you versus me. It's direct, it's back and forth. I didn't find the experience as satisfying. It felt like this kind of game didn't suit the 2 player mode as much. I would recommend this as a 3+ player game. As far as I can see others not liking, the game can be mean, especially when I say 3+ player. Sometimes you have a situation where you're doing well and other players will intentionally work to cut you off because you're the current threat. And granted, it's a 10 to 15 minute filler, but if you don't like the idea of players ganging up against you, well, this can happen, especially if you're doing well in the game. As far as final thoughts on Switchbacks, I like it. It's fast-paced, it's easy to learn, it's easy to teach. It is not the most satisfying experience I've ever had, nor will it be for most of you, but it is a good filler game. It's doing very well at what it's trying to be. It's a game that's going to give you quick, accessible gameplay in a very short time frame that works well at, well, for me, 3 to 4 players, but you can try it at 2 players. I don't think the 2-player game is bad, mind you, I just don't think it was as good. For me, this is a 3.5 out of 5. It is satisfying, it is quick, it is a good filler, which is exactly what it's trying to be. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, I recommend No Thanks. If you want a game where the sequence matters and a different kind of approach, also a good filler game, also a little pocket size, No Thanks is always going to be a game I recommend all the time. I think it's fantastic. There's also Flowers as well, which has a similar idea as to the way you're building out these sequences, but in Flowers, you're working on your own individual landscapes while you try to score points. In any case, and until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.